Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be subtracting in binary. So similar to our last video where we were performing addition on binary, we're going to jump into some really basic simple examples. So we'll start off with taking away 0 from 1. So if we take 0 from 1, it'll leave us with 1 because we're taking away nothing from it. If we have 1 and we want to take away another 1, then we're going to be left with 0. I think we all understand this. Now, where it gets a little bit more difficult is when we jump into numbers greater than 1. So when we jump into numbers like 2, 3, 4 and so on, so on. And the reason why it gets a little bit more difficult is because binary only holds 1s and 0s. So when we jump into 2 or numbers greater than 2, we have to represent it in a different format than what we're used to. So you should know by now that 1, 0 is equivalent to the number 2 in decimal. And the number 1 is just 1. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our number 2 away from our number 1. And what we're going to do here is we can't take away 1 from 0 because it'll leave us with a negative number. So what we do is we borrow from the next column. So this next column now becomes 0 and this column here becomes 2. So we now can take 1 from 2, which will leave us with 1. And we can just bring our 0 down, or if we want, we could leave it blank. But in this scenario where we change it to 0, it's always good practice to bring the 0 down. Now this time let's jump into a slightly more complex problem. We're going to have 1, 0, 0. Now if you remember from our videos where we were counting in binary, you know that this number is equal to 4 in decimal. And the number that we're going to take away from it is going to be 1, 0. And you should know that 1, 0 is the same as 2. So if we want to take 2 from 4, it'll leave us with 2. We all know this, but we want to know how we go about doing it in binary. So 0 from 0, we don't have to take anything away, so we can just leave that as 0. Now we encounter a problem, again similar to last time. When we want to take 1 away from 0, we can't do it. So we borrow from the next column. The next column loses 1, so in this case becomes 0. Now we've got 2 over here. So now 2 minus 1 leaves us with 1. And as you can see, this is equal to 2 in decimal. Again, we're going to go through another example. This one's slightly more difficult, but not too difficult. So 1, 0, 0, and we're going to take away 1, 1. Now, as you can remember, 1, 0, 0 from our last example we know is 4, and 1, 1 you might remember from some of the previous videos is 3. So we should be left with the answer as 1 here. So again, we want to take 1 from 0, but we can't do it because we can't take 1 from 0 without leaving us with a negative number. So we want to borrow from the next column. But again, we have a problem here. We can't borrow from the next column because it's also 0. So we need to borrow from the next column. So this 1 will become a 0. This column here will become a 2. And now this column here wants to borrow from this column since it's no longer 0. So this will be changed from a 2 to a 1, and this column will now be a 2. So we can now take 1 from 2, which will leave us with 1. We can now take 1 from 1, which will leave us with 0, and we can just bring down our 0. And as you can see, this number here is equal to 1. Stepping it up another little notch, we're going to have our binary number as 1, 0, 0, 0. Now you'll probably remember, again from our previous videos, this number is equal to 8. And we're going to take away from 1, 1, 1. And this number is equal to 7. So similar to last time, we want to take 1 away from 0. We can't do this. So we need to go to the next column. Again, this is also 0. We have to jump to the next column. Now we need to jump to the next column, which is actually a 1 that we can borrow from. So this 1 will become a 0. This column here will become a 2, but we have to take 1 from it for the next column, so it becomes a 1, and now this column becomes a 2. But we also have another problem. This column is 0 and it needs to borrow. So this column is changed to a 1 also. Now this column is left as 2, so now we can take 1 from 2, which leaves us with 1. 1 from 1 leaves us with 0. 1 from 1 leaves us with 0. And we can bring down our 0 if we wish. Again, this binary number is the same as 1, so it's the same as the previous example. One more medium question before we go into the harder binary questions. So we're going to start off with 1, 0, 0, 0, and we want to just take away 1. That's all, just want to take away 1. So, similar to last time, we want to take away 1 from 0. Again, we can't do this, so we need to borrow. Again, we can't borrow from this one, so we have to jump another column, and also here we have to jump another column. So this becomes 0, this becomes 2, we're going to borrow, so now it's 1. This becomes 2, again, we're going to need to borrow, so it's going to become 1, and this is left as 2. So now when we take 1 from 2, leaves us with 1, we can bring down our 1, we can bring down our 1, and we can bring down our 0. So we're left with this number. So now the question is, what is this number here? So it's the same as last time. This number is 8, this number is 1, and if we want to take 8 away from 1, it leaves us with 7. And this number here is equal to 7 in binary. So the next two questions we're going to go through is going to be a little bit more difficult. So we might need our 2 to the power of grid to help us out. You'd have seen this in previous videos, so I'm going to do this really quick. Okay, so now we've got our grid completed. You can see that we went from 2 to the power of 0 to 2 to the power of 7. We're going to need all these different bits for this example. Let's jump into our problem. So we want to add the binary number 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. We want to take our binary number 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1 from 1, 0, 1, 0, 0. Okay, 0 from 1 leaves us with 1, 0 from 0 leaves us with 0, 1 minus 1, leave it with 0, 0 take away 1, leaves us with 1, 1 from 0 we cannot do, so I need to borrow. This becomes 0, this becomes 2, this will then become 1, and we can bring down our 0. So this is the number we've got. So we need to check to see is this correct. So one thing we can do is, you probably don't know what this binary number is in decimal. So it's always good practice to check our answers by converting our binary numbers to decimal and then taking them away and seeing if we're correct. So for this example, we can start off with 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, and we can add these together. 32 plus 8 is 40, plus 4 is 44, plus 1 is 45. So I wrote down my next binary number, which is 10100. So that's equal to 16 plus 4. So 16 plus 4 is equal to 20. So we all know if we take 20 from 45, it will leave us with 25. Our next question is this binary number 25? So I wrote down my binary number under my grid, and it's equal to 16 plus 8 plus 1. So 16 plus 8 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So our answer is correct. Okay, we're going to move on to our next example. This is our last example and it's the most difficult one so far. So the first number that we want to take away from will be 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1. And the number we want to take away from this number will be 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. So let's start off. 0 from 1 leaves with 1. 2 1s will cancel themselves out, so it leaves with 0. 1 from 0 we cannot do, so we need to borrow. This becomes 0, this becomes 2. This will now become 1, the 2 zeros, 0. This here, again, we need to borrow. We can't borrow from this 0, so we need to borrow from this guy. This guy now becomes 0, this becomes 2. We need to borrow from this 2, so this 2 gets changed to a 1, and now this becomes 2. 1 from 2 leaves with 1. 0 from 1 leaves with 1. Again, we have our problem now here that we cannot take 1 from 0, so we need to borrow again. This now becomes 0, this now becomes 2. 1 from 2 leaves with 1, and we can bring down our 0. So we think we've got the right answer, but it's always good to double check it. So we want to convert these numbers into their decimal format so we know for sure. So let's start off with this number. So I've brought my two binary numbers over here, and we can see that our first binary number is equal to 128 plus 64 plus 8 plus 2 plus 1, which gives us a total of 203. So we can put 203 for this number. Now for our next number, it's going to be 64 plus 16 plus 4 plus 2. This gives us a total of 86. So we can put 86 over here. So if we want to take these two numbers away, it would leave us with an answer of 117. So this number down here must equal 117. So let's check it. So we've brought our binary number over, and we know it's equal to 64 plus 32 plus 16 plus 4 plus 1. And if you put this into your calculator, you'll find that it's equal to 117. And 117 is our answer.